Summer vacation is calling. I know there's a lot of info out there about planning for work, personal projects, and goals, but what about the fun stuff? In this video, we're going to work on a travel spread with key facts and an itinerary for wherever you might be off to next. And this is Focus and Flow, a place for planning and bullet journal inspiration. My name is Catherine, and I have been bullet journaling for 10 years now. I'm excited to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I have learned to make planning both functional and inspiring and fun. So, a trip has come up on the horizon for me this summer. I'm going to New York. I've never been before, so you can imagine that there's a lot that I want to do. I will actually be referencing another page in my journal that I have been using for sketches of my itinerary. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff on there, and it's pretty messy. So I want to streamline the information that I have to make it virtually appealing and add some other important items for my trip. It goes without saying that prior to recording, I have spent many hours researching and brainstorming. The really fun part about planning a trip to a place like New York is leaning into the diversity of interests that I have and plugging into the culture, the history, and the natural beauty that is going to kind of jive with that. Since I already have my header, I'm going to get started with some factoids and reference points that I want to have. I do always like to have a little menu like this for my trips, so I'm clear on things like the dates of departure, the weather, and the destinations themselves. I'm leaving the two little spots on the right blank so I can add the hotel info for our two destinations later. Something I like to include is the weather and time zone adjustments, if I need to, but since New York is on the East Coast and I'm already pretty cognizant of the difference between PST and EST, I'm not noting it here. But I do want to make space for the weather. At time of recording, I'm about 2 weeks out from the trip, and that is just a little bit longer than a 10-day forecast can predict. So I'll wait until I get closer to fill that section in, but I do like to note if it's sunny or cloudy or rainy and what the highs and the lows are. And since I know that I'm going to have a few random things that I'll want to do that aren't necessarily itinerary material, like eating New York style pizza or seeing a bodega cat, for example, I'm making a little space for myself to come in and drop these items later on. Okay, so let's build that itinerary, shall we? Long story short, this is a 9-day trip, and 6 of those days are reserved for exploring. So I am really just focusing on those days. On the others, I will be working, which has its own schedule elsewhere, and I'm not going to worry about it here. Oh my god, do you ever suddenly forget how to spell a word? I wanted to center the word itinerary as a subheader here, so I started writing it out from the center of the word, if that makes any sense. And then I got totally mixed up. Oh my god. Itinerary. Okay, so whiteout to the rescue, and I will come back and finish that header once the whiteout has dried. Okay, I wanted to go ahead and designate my things to do area. Again, that's just kind of fun ideas. I like to have an extra little space where I can jot a couple of these things down. It doesn't feel so official, but it also is a reminder of little things I want to do. Another thing I like to have on board for this type of spread is a packing list. I will actually fill this out a day or so before I really start to pack. So for now, I'm just making space for these things. This is just a way for me to make sure I don't forget X, Y, and Z about the stuff I want to be bringing. Since I have a little bit of extra space on this page, I wanted to take advantage of that and add a few little doodles just for fun. So I just looked up online some ideas for New York themed doodles and just a quick browse at some of the ideas that are out there, some of the other things people have done. So I chose a couple of little sketches to do and went ahead and threw those in there. By the way, did you know that New York is known as the jazz capital of the USA? Which means it has to be the jazz capital of the world, right? Because jazz came from the US. Things to think about. I have absolutely loved Billie Holiday since I was in my maybe later teenage years, and because of her, I got into Lester Young. Those who know Lady Day and Prez forever. New York was not only influential with jazz, but also swing and bebop. Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Wynton Marsalis, Miles Davis, I could go on and on and on. A lot of this music is integrated into my soul, to be honest, and I couldn't visit New York without paying some type of respect. So this little saxophone is a testament to that. The real meat and potatoes of this layout is the itinerary. So I'm going to plug in the events and important areas that I want to visit. Again, I am referencing my rough draft here so I know what's going on because I've kind of already figured a lot of this out and I'm just finalizing it. This is going to be my official landing page for the trip, so I want to have precise times written down if there are any. And as you can see, I've decided to hit certain areas on certain days to make it a little bit more sensible or effortless, hopefully. For example, on Friday, we have a ferry to see the Statue of Liberty. That's not Friday, that's Saturday. On Saturday, we have a ferry, and since that's all the way at the south end of the landmass, we're going to also visit the financial district. We're going to go up through Tribeca and end up at Soho. So like I said before, I'm leaning to my personal interests here because I want to make sure to see things like the Ghostbusters firehouse. I want to visit a Ganesh temple for an arti at a certain point in the evening, and we'll probably come back later and plug in some places to stop and eat as well. Two of the days here are reserved for a guided tour because we are going with a larger group to Niagara Falls, and I will fill in their itinerary here. But honestly, they have their own plans already. I'm just going to fall in line with what they already have, and I'm not worried about really knowing any of this information since all I have to do is get to the point of departure and just go with their program. I say this because I think it's important to, again, think about the kinds of things that you are really interested in and kind of lean into that when you're planning a trip, because if you're interested in things like sports or arts or history or architecture or natural landscape, whatever it is, wherever you travel to is going to have some element of that, and all it takes is a little bit of research and a little tiny bit of effort to find some of those things that really can end up feeling like a gem for you instead of just, oh, what are the top 10 things to do in New York City? Of course, I plan to do probably almost everything on the top 10 list, but I also have my own ideas of things that I personally am really interested in seeing and doing. So I want to make sure that I have space for that, and that's where this itinerary planning comes in. Okay, it's time for some color to finish off this spread and have it looking nice and ready to go. I like to do these kinds of spreads ahead of time to give myself at least a few days to come back and add things as they come to mind, because they definitely will. And that's all for this time. I hope that this has given you some ideas, or at least has been a fun and relaxing watch while you do your own craft. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, liking, or dropping me a comment. Getting feedback on these videos helps me to stay motivated to keep sharing my process with you guys. Happy summer and have a wonderful trip wherever you might be going, and I will see you in the next video.